Welcome back to the TigerDen podcast. I'm Tiger, and if you can hear the excitement in my voice, it's because today we are talking about the one thing every maker claims to hate, but secretly needs to master if they want their work to shine. I'm talking about sanding.
Oh man, sanding. Tiger, I was hoping we were talking about welding or something high octane today. Sanding usually just means I'm going to be dusty, tired, and bored for 3 hours. You're telling me people actually fall in love with this?
They do, Alex, or at least they fall in love with the results. Look, I learned this the hard way. You can spend $500 on the finest walnut and 50 hours on perfect joinery, but if your surface prep is sloppy, the whole piece looks amateur. Today, we're breaking down how to master the random orbit sander so you stop fighting the tool and start seeing that glass-smooth finish we all crave.
All right, I'm listening. Because right now, my sanding technique is just moving the sander around until I get tired. Where do we actually start?
It starts before you even turn the machine on. Here's a pro tip that most beginners miss. Hook that sander up to a vacuum.
Is that just to keep the shop clean? Because my shop is already a mess, Tiger.
It's about more than the mess, Alex. When you hook up a vacuum, it pulls the dust out from under the sanding pad. If that dust stays there, it clogs up the abrasive particles. That makes your sandpaper less efficient and it wears out way faster. Plus, when dust builds up, it can cause pigtails, those annoying little swirl marks that show up later when you apply stain.
Okay, that makes sense. Save the lungs, save the sandpaper. Now, what about the sandpaper itself? I never know which grit to pick first. I usually just grab whatever is on the sander from the last project.
Laughs, don't do that. You need to choose your starting grit based on the wood's condition. If you've got planer snipe, those deep gouges at the end of a board, or uneven glue-ups, you need to start coarse, like 80 or 100 grit. But if you're working with a piece that's already pretty smooth, like some nice cherry or oak, you can start at 120.
That's interesting. So what you're saying is, the first grit is the most important.
Exactly. The first grit has one job: remove all the milling and machinery marks. If you don't get those out with the 80 or 120, you'll never get them out with the 2 and 20. Every grit after the first one is just there to refine the scratch pattern of the one before it.
Wait, can you explain that more? If I start at 80, I'm making big scratches, right?
Spot on. The 100 grit removes the 80 grit scratches. The 120 removes the 100, and so on. If you skip a step, the finer grit won't be strong enough to erase the deep marks from the coarse stuff. And here is where most people fail: speed.
I'm guilty of this. I move that sander like I'm scrubbing a dirty dish.
And that's the mistake. When it comes to random orbit sanding, slow and steady wins the race. You should be advancing the sander at a rate of about 1 inch per second, or roughly 8 to 10 seconds per foot.
10 seconds per foot? That feels like an eternity when you're staring at a tabletop.
It does, but it's the only way to let the tool do the work. You also need to overlap your passes by about a third to a half. And whatever you do, Alex, don't tilt the sander. Keep it flat. If you let more than a third of the pad overhang the edge, you're going to round over that nice sharp corner and ruin your lines.
Okay, slow down, overlap, keep it flat. But how do I know when I'm actually done with a specific grit? I usually just sand until I'm bored, but there's got to be a better way to tell.
There is. I learned this trick from a furniture maker named Terry Masashi. Take a pencil and draw a light squiggle across the entire surface of the wood. Sand until those pencil marks are gone, then make one more slow pass across the whole area. If the pencil is gone, it means you've leveled that surface to that specific grit.
That is a game changer. I can actually see the progress.
It really takes the guesswork out of it. And here's another pro tip for when you think you're finished with that first grit. Wipe the wood down with some denatured alcohol or mineral spirits.
Does that clean the wood?
It cleans the dust, but more importantly, it mimics what the wood will look like with a finish on it. If you use a raking light, basically a light held at a low angle across the surface, those mineral spirits will reveal any machine marks or scratches you missed. If it looks good under the spirits, you're safe to move up to the next grit.
What about the tricky parts, like thin table legs? I feel like if I put my big power sander on a skinny leg, I'm going to ruin the shape.
Good instinct. For narrow pieces, gang them up. Line all 4 legs up side by side and clamp them together. Now you've created a wide, flat surface for your sander to sit on. If you can't do that, put the power tool away and use a sanding block. Sometimes the old-fashioned way is the safest way.
This sounds like a lot of steps, Tiger, but I can see how it leads to a better result. 120, 150, 180, 220. Is that the standard progression?
That's the golden path. Once you hit 220, the wood starts to feel like silk. In our next episode, we're actually going to talk about how to take it even further by hand sanding for that ultimate refinement. But for now, if you master the Orbit sander, you're already ahead of 90% of the hobbyists out there.
I think I'm actually excited to go try that pencil squiggle trick. It turns sanding into a game instead of a chore.
That's the spirit. To wrap up today, 1. Hook up your vacuum. Save your sandpaper and your health. 2. Choose your starting grit wisely to remove all machine marks first. 3. Move slow, 1 inch per second. 4. Use the pencil squiggle trick to track your progress.
And don't forget the mineral spirits check.
Exactly. Thanks for tuning into the TigerDen podcast. If you found these tips helpful, leave us a review or head over to our social media and show us your glass smooth projects.
Go get dusty, everyone, but do it the right way.
We'll see you in the shop next time.